Welcome, welcome, and welcome. I'm Habi.
And I'm Kunle. Well, today's show is all about discussion around representation. Does it really matter?
I guess we'll find out. So, joining us today, we have the lovely Phyllis Ruse and Aavish Kant, who are both fellow Beckett now co-presenters with me. How are you doing today, guys?
I'm good, thank you.
Completely good.
Good.
Thank you.
Good, good. So, Phyllis, I heard that you're doing some research on West African mythology. Can you tell us more about it? Because I'm interested.
Yes, so I went to Leeds Beckett University and did
Good.
media communications and culture, where I did my dissertation on West African mythology and how it's been represented in Western media. So it's looking at how West African mythology, folklore, and stories have spread from West Africa, obviously, to the Caribbeans, the Americas, and even parts of Europe through the slave trade, and have been kept alive within Black African communities, and then also how they've been spread into popular TV shows such as American Horror Story,
Ooh.
season 3 Coven, with Papa Legba, so from the Yoruba tribe. Well, he's an Orisha from the Yoruba tribe, and then you have American Gods, where you have Anansi, who is a spider. He's represented from West African mythology in Nigeria. And then you also have other characters such as Papa Legba again in Disney's Princess and the Frog,
Right?
played by the evil character, you know. So it's not always positive representation, it can be negative too.
Right.
Also you have just so many different representations that have been put in media, which most people don't realize are from Black African communities that were derived from West African mythology and have been kept alive to this day.
Nice. I'm already interested today.
Amazing, amazing, Philip. And that actually brings us back to our discussion for today, which is representation. Does it really matter? When people talk about representation, they do talk about representing specific persons or group of persons, and when someone also speaks on their behalf. But then we don't ask ourselves, does it basically really matter? Because you have the Hispanic group, for instance, in America, they do say the Hispanics are not well represented in American movies, or the Black will say the stereotype about blacks is being kept just the way it is, beating the blacks just that in a bad light.
Well, I think it's due to the lack of diversity within studios, media studios, and I guess the upper producers, you know, heads of producing series, not taking into account that people from these communities aren't being represented in a positive or more accurate light. It's being represented from the perspective of normally from white heterosexual men who have a very kind of, I don't want to say narrow but specific viewpoint on these different groups, because they're not part of those, they're not from those groups. It's not their fault, it's just they're not from them. So you need more people from these different backgrounds to come in and to help give their point of view on these communities which they are familiar with and they know. So I think that's something we need to start pushing for more diversity within different media studios, film studios, script writers, to consider how we're going to implement these characters and represent these different cultures and ethnicities.
Right.
Yeah, and I completely agree with her. So representation does matter, because when you see the role of the media is to change the thought of the society.
Yeah, we
So-
know that.
So if a society is thinking in one manner of a community, say Indians, so we as Indians would want the media to represent Indians in such a manner that shows the true culture of an Indian, not a
Right.
stereotypical one.
Yeah.
So yeah, in that manner to change the way the society thinks, it's where representation matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and do you think that we need people of a particular group to want to see them succeed in work, in school, in whatever field they find themselves?
Well, life is, well, in sorry, I'm going to say, what's the phrase where life in God, what's it called? Where it interprets media, or like
Right.
it copies media, and media copies life, basically. So when people see themselves represented on television, in books, in movies, and series, it helps. Well, it helps them not feel like they are not there within society, that they are actually being
A part of the
considered a
society.
part
Yeah.
of society. And it helps people who may not know that community, or may not ever see that community every day, or live around people from those different communities, feel more comfortable to see them on different media and also on TV. and
Right.
series.
Also to add to that, it also brings a sense of empowerment to
Okay.
the community that is being represented. And suppose if we put our view in not just the media, but we expand our view in the society itself. So Rishi Sunak has become the Prime Minister. So we, the Indian community, might feel empowered that one of us has gone and climbed up that ladder. So
Nice.
the nice representation and a powerful representation
Yeah.
also ends up empowering the community.
Yeah. So talking about representation, can you discuss when you ever felt underrepresented in any situation?
I guess it would have to be perhaps at universities, or say higher up universities, say as Oxford or Cambridge. You don't really see that much promotional material or advertisement where you see people from different ethnicities going to these universities. Same with advertisements for clothing or makeup. You know, for a long time you didn't see that many
Yeah.
people of colour represented on TV, and also within these adverts. Obviously, that's kind of changed a lot recently, especially when we had Rihanna's new line of Fenty, where she showed that huge line of
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
skin
The
care,
Fenty Beauty.
different
Right.
foundations,
Shit.
and showed there were over 45 different shades, and there's way more, obviously, but it made other makeup companies realize, oh, we're completely cutting out a
Yeah.
market here of people that would want to buy a product, but we've never even considered them. And in a weird way, it kind of it's like companies are shooting themselves in the foot, because they're not considering the needs and the wants of other people who want to spend money, who want to buy these products, but
Right.
they look at it and they're like, this isn't for me. This isn't. They're not
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
cater or can make a product that's for me. So financially, it just seems like
About
a smart thing
Fenty.
to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
to
About
consider
Fenty, right.
diversity and representation, so you can sell more.
Yeah, but things are getting, as she said, the things are getting better as we progress because of the migration. A lot of people from other countries are settling in.
Certain different
Yeah,
other
settling
places in the
different parts
world.
of land. So
Yeah.
they with themselves bring in their
Yeah.
culture. So earlier people might say that they are underrepresented, but things are slowly changing for the good, and I feel it continues to be
Get
better.
better from here.
How important can representation be? Because I think representation can be
I think it's
taken
extremely
from different
important.
angle.
I mean, if the thing is, because of social media and the internet and capitalism as a whole, we are connected globally. Like, everyone is connected now, and we have to acknowledge the fact that there are different people around us. There's so many different types of people with
Right.
disabilities. You have to consider like different ethnicities. Because if we don't, then we're just going to isolate ourselves and keep ourselves in little bubbles. And if we want to live in a global society, we have to consider others and how we represent them, preferably in positive lights, so that we can all get along as a
Yeah.
global society. So it doesn't make any sense to not consider representation and diversity for everything. So.
Yeah. So I'm going to move on to the next question, and this might sound a bit sensitive, right? Because we are talking about how Black and Asian minorities have been represented over the years. We know that there are different ways that you see a Black man, and the first thing you see sometimes is the bad things that might have been represented with that Black person. So over the years, what do you think has changed, and what's the situation now?
Well, with the George Floyd situation, we had, the Black Lives Matter movement because people on a global scale were
Right.
seeing on their phones, through TikTok and through the news media and just videos that were spread online that there is an issue within the West where the enforcers, police, are targeting black people to a much more than they target, say, white people who may be doing the exact same thing, say, smoking weed or
Right.
dealing drugs. They are more likely to be criminalized and put into prison, black people, compared to, say, their white counterparts. So,
Yeah.
and people are realizing that this is just not fair. This isn't justice. So we need to consider how we're going to keep the peace while also being just in making sure that we're not scaring people and we're not using our power in an abusive way to
Right.
vulnerable communities. And not just black communities, but Asian communities, Jewish communities, Native American communities, Native communities within different countries or places,
Yeah.
people with disabilities. We have to be considerate of these different people.
I know.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think the representation should have to be in such a manner that it is not stereotypical of, so a black representation has, Hollywood has always projected, if I'm not wrong, a negative in the community in a negative manner for a certain period of time. And similarly with the Indian communities and the Asian communities, we have been represented in a manner.
It's more like a joke, almost.
Yeah, it's
just,
more like a
uh,
joke, like Apu
Come on.
from Simpsons. It has the stereotype, the accent which we speak,
And
which is
then-
not. And this is the Indian accent. It's not.
But then a lot of white people have told me that, Apu's just a character, same as like the Simpsons and the characters. But then I always go like, then why is he a different color to all the other characters? And they're like,
exactly.
yes,
Right.
they're all yellow, but why is Apu
A brown character.
very, portrayed in such a stereotypical, comical way, and is almost seen as subhuman within this context of the show.
Right.
And I think that's an issue where you have a lot of people who aren't white. They are shown as being almost subhuman or dehumanized within these mediums, which people don't really realize until you look at the context and you consider how companies like Disney or other children's media have represented
Right.
people from other who have disabilities or are from different ethnic backgrounds in a more comical light, which
Yeah.
it shouldn't be the case. They should be represented as people, as humans, and they should think about how they're writing the character and their struggles,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
So
who they are as a person, not just a commodity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
so speaking about Disney, because, Disney, they're mixed with, helping us with our emotions, right? And how over the years
Yeah,
we've seen
as a kid.
different princesses, we've seen Cinderella, we've seen different princesses, right? But now
Yeah.
we have the Little Mermaid portrayed as a black person.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
saw reactions from young people, and some were crying literally because they're like,
Crying in a good way or
this
bad
is a
way?
black person as a princess, and some
Right.
could not believe it. So when you saw that, what was your first thought?
I thought it's a mermaid. It's not real. So who cares who it's played by? Like, and then you had a lot of redheads saying, "Oh, it's taking away from redhead representation." I'm thinking like, well, she has red hair in the trailer, so
Yeah.
that's not
That's
an
not
issue,
it,
then
right?
is it? And also, you've got two other princesses who have red hair. You got the one from Frozen and the other one who's Scottish or something. But that's not the point. What the issue is obviously that her skin is black. How she can sing? She's a pretty girl,
Right.
but the only difference is that she's
A
She's
black
black.
person.
African
Yeah.
American.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what people have an issue with or take issue with. And then you hear the counter argument where people are saying, well, we shouldn't just keep remaking these old movies. If we want to have a black princess, why don't we just make a
A new
movie with
movie.
with a black princess with her own story? Yes.
Yeah.
But that's this shouldn't be an issue to have a princess, a mermaid,
Yeah.
played by a black character. It's a folklore. It's not real.
Right.
It's not a religion. It's not like it happened.
Black girls can be
Mermaids don't
princesses,
exist.
right.
It's not real. So why are we getting so upset about the idea of having different ethnicities play these famous
Roles.
characters?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Roles.
the outrage to the black mermaid itself shows how the society has been mind washed, should I say, to think that
Only
princesses
white people can be
are
princesses.
being
Yeah.
represented in
Yeah.
such a manner. So the outrage itself is a reflection of that thinking.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have black princesses in Africa.
But now
Yeah.
we're happy to see a black person be a princess on camera.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you,
Avish.
Phyllis. Thank you,
Thank you.
Aavish.
It's been a very, interesting topic. And I think that if the majority can see that people who don't look like them in extraordinary positions, I mean, in work, in society, on screen, education, and they all start at a very young age, maybe, just maybe, they can get their minds around the idea that other people who are different from them, deserve the same amount of respect. Well, that's it from us today. Be inspired
Be educated.
and be Beckett now. Bye for now.